Xenoblade Chronicles for the Nintendo Wii came out in 2012 and was the swan song for the console, as the last game to come out for the Wii was... Just Dance 2018? You mean to tell me not even the Switch could kill off the Wii? Whatever. The point I'm making is that Xenoblade Chronicles 1 marked the end of the Wii era, we don't talk about that one, and now Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was the first major JRPG on the Switch. And it's amazing! I do not regret my decision to buy a Switch because of this game. Look at this playtime! Then subtract 20 hours because they did something that just added extra time to my save. And that, dear viewer, is how much time I have spent in this game at the time of making this video. And it's somehow longer than my playtime on the original. And I still like the original more than this game. How does that even happen? The answer, dear viewer, is blades. I'm not sure if that's grammatically correct, but I've never paid attention in English class, so what the hell do I know? For the sake of this video, I'll be talking about the 10 blades you get through the game's story progression, and let that serve as your spoiler warning if you for some reason have not played this wonderful, wonderful game yet. I know that there are 11 story-related blades that you get, but I'm sorry, Wolfric, you have no plot relevance whatsoever. Also, before we get started, I just want to say that I'll be recording a good chunk of the footage in this video myself, so if the resolution is a little bit funny, I apologize in advance. With all that out of the way, bond with me, viewer, as I talk about the blades that journeyed with us to Elysium and always reminded us
to fight your war.
One problem that Xenoblade games tend to have is giving each character an appropriate amount of development. Character development on its own is not an issue in this game, and its predecessor has developed some of the best characters I've ever seen in any video game, but not every character resonates with me, and some are just objectively better than others, so we start off with the least relevant character in the game, DroMark. I remember seeing DroMark for the first time in the Switch reveal, when Nia was riding him through that rock gate that transitions you from the lower level of Gorma to the lush Garanti Plains. I see what you did there, Monolith. At the time, it never occurred to me that this tiger would be playable, and while you don't directly control DroMark, considering he's Nia's main blade, you'll see plenty of him early on. DroMark is a water healer blade that uses twin rings and is a fantastic early game addition to your party. The great thing about DroMark is that he synergizes wonderfully with Pyrra, as the Steam Explosion blade combo will be your bread and butter for damage output in Chapter 2. DroMark's no slouch in the healing department either, as the RT grants Nia give her break utility and her now classic Healin' Halo. However, as useful as DroMark might be early on, he is easily outclassed by other healer blades you can get through core crystals, except for you worthless Beartech knockoff! And then there's his story relevance, of which he has none. I get he's a companion for Nia, but that shouldn't be a character's main selling point. DroMark even feels redundant in terms of character, as we already have a wise mentor figure with Gramps, and eventually Vandom, both of whom do better jobs than DroMark, who's just... there. That sums up my opinion of DroMark quite nicely. He's just there, at the bottom of this list. When 2 approached its release date, a lot of people complained about the art style being too anime for a Xenoblade game, which we can call total bull on, as this game outsold both the original and X in about 2 months. This argument is identical to another popular Nintendo series, Fire Emblem. Believe it or not, lead art director for Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates, Yusuke Kozaki, designed 2 blades for this game, Agate, who honestly is one of my favorite blades by design, and a Geon. A Geon is a water blade that wields a chrome katana, meaning he is a tank and synergizes wonderfully with his driver, Morag. Since Bridget is locked to Morag, slapping a Geon onto her second driver slot gives Morag access to an elemental pair, meaning that if she puts an orb on an enemy with either Bridget or a Geon, the opposite blade can break it in a chain attack and fill up the burst gauge. Morag's arts with a katana also work well with her role as the agility tank, as she has arts that can boost her aggro, deal extra damage to enemies aggroed onto her, and the ability to evade enemy attacks. A Geon is just a perfect blade for Morag, and unlike DroMark, he remains consistently useful because of his synergy with Bridget. Now, What lessens my opinion of a Gion is the fact that he is a victim of what I like to call Charla Syndrome. Charla Syndrome is where a character has a backstory that is so heavily foreshadowed that you'd have to be deliberately not paying attention to the plot to be surprised by any developments. Now, a Gion doesn't really suffer from this, but his original driver does, Emperor Nile. Let me run you through my thought process the moment I saw a Gion. Okay, so Nail forcibly dies, Morak takes a core crystal to awaken a Gion later on in the game, but Nail's not actually going to die, so the game can mirror a Melia and Callion relationship between these two. Discount Callion here will tell Morak that she should go with the drive of the Aegis, not just to save the world, but for her own sake. That was my horrible attempt at a British accent. Morak will show slight sexual interest in Rex, and the game carries on. So, what happens when you get a Gion? Nail forcibly dies, Morak takes a core crystal, Nail's not actually going to die, as the game forces a Melia and Callion relationship between these two. Discount Callion told Morak that she should go with the drive of the Aegis not to save the world but for her own sake, and Morak shows slight sexual interest in Rex, and the game carries on. But that leaves me with one question. Considering that drivers need to die in order for their blades to return to the core crystal, how the hell did a Gion go back to his core if Nail didn't die first?
Look who knows so much, huh? Well, it just so happens that your friend here is only mostly dead. There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead.
Oh, well, that explains everything then. Carry on. To be a true gentleman, a man must respect all women, regardless of their size, stature, and standing. Be they thick or small, lewd and rude, and especially if they are a queen. Although I guess it's easy to cheat the rules if you design a blade that is such a cutie. Papi Quixotic Tutelar, or Papi QT for short, is the second form of Papi, and you acquire her towards the end of Chapter 4, after Tora and Papi undergo a good amount of development. Upon reaching Moradane, an artificial blade that Tora recognizes as Lila attacks the town, and you set out to stop her. Lila ultimately gets away, but after some digging, you learn that there's an artificial blade factory in Moradane, which is where Tora's father is being held captive and forced to make artificial blades against his will. Armed with this knowledge and a burning passion to help Tora get his father back, the gang go on a rescue mission, only to find that Bana is the one running the factory, holding Tora's father captive, and is controlling Lila against her will. After stopping Lila and seeing the greatest Scooby-Doo villain cutscene play out in a video game, Rex and Nia chase after Bana, only to find him in a giant robot-made blade. Overwhelmed by the blade's power, Tora and Papi show up to help as Papi Gynax poses into a Mecha Sailor Moon transformation sequence. When I saw this for the first time, I was hysterical, as this is the most anime the game has gone at this point. I thought we hit peak anime with Mithra's tsundere antics before, but this takes the cake. When it comes to blade qualities, I'll explain more about Papi in general later when I get to Papi Alpha, but Cutie is typically people's least favorite form in terms of design and battle capabilities, since her affinity chart suggests her to be an evasion tank, while Tora's worst stat is agility, which the game uses to calculate evasion. Let me now remind you that you get Morak immediately after this fight, and you can see why I'm not as fond of QT. However, Papi QT's utility and flashy entrance are what have me put her above the previous two. And who doesn't love Papi? Chickens are weird. They can be harmless creatures that swarm you to death if you look at them funny, or they can be considered dragons that raise your enemies. Xenoblade is no exception, as you have the Tyrkins, which were clearly organized and sentient in 1, but in 2, they're apparently full-fledged chefs that can talk? Oh, and there's a rainbow chicken blade that wields dual sides. Rock is a unique blade, to say the least. I never thought a chicken would be a trap, but somehow Japan finds a way. And yes, I thought Rock was a woman when I first saw him. I mean, look at how thick those chest sacks are! But then he spoke and I realized that I should probably put the game down since I've been playing for about 9 hours straight. I can't have been the only one to have thought this, right? Anyways, Rock is the soul blade of Vandom and is a wind attacker that uses dual sides, which are exclusive to him. When the game just said, okay kid, here's your 4th party member, I fanboyed a little. This is the first time in a Xenoblade game where you can play as the Vandom character, who is a reoccurring character in the Xeno series, however he has not been playable until now. And I'm not gonna lie, he was pretty garbage. Vandom just doesn't fit anywhere on your team, as you have a pretty good vibe going on with your original trio. There's also the fact that the opposite element of wind is ice in this game, to which I respond with the fact that there are no ice blades that you get through the story, meaning you're forced to rely on a common blade, or if you're lucky enough to pull a rare one, in order to make effective use of chain attacks. However, after going through the saddest moment in the game, followed by the most pointless tangent in it, Rock becomes a staple on Rex, and while it's a bit awkward to use at first, he becomes an essential part of driver combos because of his smash utility. With proper setup, you can pull off driver combos as early as chapter 4, which is practically an insta-kill for anything at this point in the game, and becomes a great farming tool later on. It's Rock's connection to Vandom and his usefulness as a blade with smash capabilities that make me pleased to meet him. The next blade for this list was one I was almost certain I was going to dislike. Her design was not something I was a fan of, but I guess you shouldn't judge a blade by her appearance. And I think that goes double for her driver, since this nutcase turned out to be a prince. I don't know why I was so hung up over Pandora's design originally. Then again, when I react negatively to something in a trailer, I get over it once the game is in my hands. Now, Pandora is number 6 on this list, but I adore all of the remaining blades, so know that this was a decision I did not make lightly. Pandora is an electric attacker blade that is a partner of Oziklyres Brunev Tantal, better known as
The mighty Zeke von Gembu, bringer of chaos!
I know Zeke is awesome, but this is about Pandora, so I must stay focused on her. In terms of arts, she gives Zeke launch utility, making him a staple in driver combos, and useful AoE arts, which are a Von Genbu trademark. In terms of character, Pandora's best moment happens when Rex and the gang explore the Spirit Crucible Elpis for the Aegis sword, where Zeke reveals that he has part of a core crystal inside of his chest, and tells the party about the time he almost died. Pandora, desperate to keep Zeke alive, carries him on her back but passes out, accepting her fate to be a bandaged driver. Upon waking up, Pandora learns that a Malthus transplanted part of her core crystal into Zeke's heart, keeping the two of them alive. It's a tender moment, but the best part is the subtle detail that occurs from this, which lies in Pandora's glasses. Instead of having the stupid, tropey, fogged up glasses that idiots typically wear in anime, and I think I just remembered why I hated her design originally, her glasses become transparent. This is reflected in her affinity chart and her character art as well. This, hands down, is my favorite subtle detail about this game, as it shows that Pandora finally opened up to the party because Zeke trusted them enough, and anyone who earns her prince's trust has earned her trust as well. Show of hands, who was actually surprised when they found out Morag and Bridget joined your party? Yeah, that sounds about right. The Jewel of Morardain. Bridget is a blade that exemplifies grace, elegance, beauty, and is the perfect foil for the Flamebringer Morag. These two complement each other perfectly, and the two share an intimate bond that reflects their loyalty not just to Morardain, but to each other as driver and blade. Bridget may feel redundant at first with her being a fire tank, but right after you get access to her, you can switch between Pyrra and Mithra at will, and Morag has 3 driver slots, so Tora, get your ass on the bench. Morag's whip sword arts, and that sounds just as badass as it does completely impractical, give her aggro generation, break utility, and evasion, making Morag your best tank at this point in the game. In terms of character, Bridget's theme revolves around her memories. Because she is literally a national treasure, Bridget's memories have been chronicled in her journals, so while she doesn't remember her past lives, she does have access to her past memories. But that doesn't give her the closure that she wants, which is knowing if she's different now compared to her past selves. Her arc gets kind of resolved during your time in Moritha, where you team up with Jin to make it out of there alive, and Bridget asks Jin if she's changed. For seemingly no reason at all except for being an asshole, Jin lies saying that she's nothing like she was during the Aegis War, only to tell the truth 15 minutes later. Now, this would be a good scene that gives Bridget some closure if it weren't for one thing. We already knew this with Rock! Did the writers forget that they shoehorned in a completely pointless side story that took 30 minutes of my time, only to have a roundabout way to get us to Awaken Rock? Because I sure as hell didn't forget that shit, and if they can forget it, I would like to know what they're smoking and where I can get some of it. I will give credit where it is due, however, as seeing Bridget slap Rex as she told him Pyrra's true feelings was a good moment for her, but damn, that slap was satisfying as hell. Future Omni, play that shit back on repeat while a cute anime girl spits gangster rap over it. Ugh, fine.
Everybody in the club getting tipsy. Now everybody in the club getting tipsy.
Now this is something I could watch all day. What the fuck was wrong with me 2 months ago?
How may I be of service, master?
Did you really expect me to use anything else for an intro? Come on, it's Papi, and I love Papi. Papi Alpha is the character's introduction to artificial blades, as Papi is not a blade by nature, but by design, as Tora marks 3 generations of perverted Nopon engineers working on the bundle of preciousness and purity that is Papi. Papi joins you as an earth tank, but Papi can be whatever the hell you feel like so long as you have the right manuals and enough patience. Why patience? I can't stall on this for any longer, but Papi, you would easily be my favorite blade in the game if I didn't have to put up with the abomination that is Tiger.
Below belt.
So is having the light core locked behind Tiger. If Tiger was not a part of this game in any fashion, not only would I worship Papi even more, but this game would be much better as a whole. The issue with Tiger is that it is the only medium through which you can upgrade Papi and her other forms, period. Since Papi is an artificial blade, she doesn't use auxiliary cores like other blades, but instead has the Papi swap, which is a feature that lets you upgrade Papi and fully customize her to be whatever you want. And I truly mean whatever you want. Healer, tank, attacker, hell, Papi can even be the 3rd light blade in the game if you have the patience for that damn light core. Papi's customization is limited only by her ether furnace capacity, and a nice feature is that the parts you earn through Tiger can be converted into ether crystals by hitting the Y button in the creation part, and I'm only saying this because I went through nearly the entire game without knowing this. Because, you know, I guess the game that had the first 20 hours be a glorified tutorial didn't think a brief explanation of that would be needed, now did they? Not only is Papi's customization incredibly useful and versatile, but she has several instances of amazing character development, like when she helps cheer up Rex, or her conversations with Mithra, or that one moment in the ending cutscene of the game. All of these are great moments that make me love Papi all that much more, but man, fuck that shitty Kid Icarus knockoff. Good character, OPF. Good character, OPF. Best girl, tsundere? While Mithra and Pyrra are technically the same person, I think it's okay if I count them as separate for this list, because aside from their core crystal, these two are worlds apart. Mithra is the alternate form of Pyrra, who joins you at the end of Chapter 3, and is the only light blade in the game, because good luck trying to summon Cosmos, and I've already said my piece about Papi. At first, using Mithra might be a little daunting since she's...
Wait,
Get out! Interloper! Monster!
wait a minute, would you? Ow!
We'll go with less than excited to be here, and you probably have no idea what kind of blade combos you can pull off with her. However, you're not completely in the dark, as Mithra uses the Aegis Sword weapon class, meaning that Rex will have the same arts as he did when using Pyrra, so your general strategy will remain the same. A nice touch regarding these two is how both Pyrra and Mithra have access to solo blade combos, as Fire and Light are 2 elements which you can spam repeatedly until you reach their level 3 blade art, so the nuking potential is still there. But when you max out Mithra's affinity chart, get her to S+ trust, and give her the best core chip in the game, you're nearly invincible. Go look up any endgame Mithra build and you'll understand why she's broken, because once you set up Mithra properly, she is bar none one of the best blades in the game. I can farm super bosses, freaking super bosses with Mithra, because she is that damn OP. As if Mithra wasn't good enough as is, she can give you critical bonus, arts recharge, and all kinds of absurd potential damage if you reach max affinity with her in battle, which, let me tell you, is not a difficult task at all. Mithra is one of the most fun blades to use in the game, and has been a staple in my teams ever since I got her, since this is the true power of an Aegis. What the hell? I thought you couldn't scream! Oh, Pyrra, what don't I love about you? I know people like to say that the voice acting isn't great and that her design is too distracting or revealing, to which I say Sky Bennett did a wonderful job voicing these two, and she did a great job making them sound linked but distinct, and I like both Pyrra and Mithra's design. Pyrra may not have the most modest of outfits, but she's still such a pure blade that must be taken to Elysium at all costs. Pyrra is your first blade in the game and is a fire attacker that gives you access to arts that deal extra damage based on positioning, an AoE aggro reduction art, and an art that initially only drops HP potions before becoming Rex's main topple tool. The thing that kind of sucks about Pyrra is that she's totally outclassed by Mithra later in the game, but when you do have Pyrra, she is a force to be reckoned with and still gets plenty of development throughout the game after Mithra shows up. Pyrra's moments all range from comedic to caring, and she continues to develop literally all the way until the end. That's what I love about Pyrra. She hooked me in from the start, as I didn't need much of a reason to be interested in Pyrra. I just was. From the first moments you see Pyrra standing somberly on that hill by the tree, I felt compelled to help her, and she never made me question why, as she gave off this trusting, almost motherly vibe, as Pyrra cares about her friends and wants to make sure that those around her are safe. Pyrra constantly deals with feelings of self-doubt, as she thinks that Rex would have been better off having never met her, and that she'd be best off having never been reawakened. However, that couldn't have been further from the truth, as because of his encounter with her, Rex was given an opportunity to achieve his dreams, go on a grand adventure, and meet all kinds of wonderful people. This all happened because Pyrra stood by Rex's side and supported him through and through, and that is why I love Pyrra. This moment. This was the moment that we knew. We knew we found her. We have found the Melia of this game.
I love you, Rex.
What?
Rex!
Nia, I love you too. I love you and all you guys.
Yep, we found her, boys. Poor Nia! Anime protagonist denseness aside, Nia is my favorite blade in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This was the highlight of the game for me. Nia's reveal as a flesh eater had been foreshadowed, and I knew from the hot spring scene that Nia was one. I mean, all the pieces fit. She was a member of Torna, which consists of nothing but hybrids except for Malos. She wasn't feeling well in the Spirit Crucible Elpis, and was foreshadowed as early as the hot spring scene, which I'm just shocked was actually used to hint at a major plot point, and was more than just tasteless fan service. Well played, game. Well played. Nia's revelation as a blade gives you access to, in my opinion, the best healer in the game, as Nia's blade power gives her restoration, and I'm 100% down with a character that focuses on regen. Nia is a water healer like DroMark, but unlike DroMark, she uses a Catalyst Scimitar, which I probably butchered the pronunciation of, which gives Rex access to similar arts as Pyrra and Mithra, as he gets an AoE attack, an art that drops healing potions, and his best healing art, Redemption, which is an upgraded version of Healing Halo. Now, what makes Nia incredible is her affinity chart. Nia's affinity chart at base gives Rex the ability to restore the entire party for 10% of the damage he deals with specials, can restore 30% of his damage dealt through auto attacks to the entire party, a base 5% HP restoration to Rex every time he lands an auto attack, and can occasionally restore 4% of the entire party's max HP when she has max affinity, which is not hard to do at this point in the game. I remember how empowering it was using Nia for the first time, as I plowed through the cliffs of Mithra, constantly restoring my allies' health and constantly keeping Rex close to full HP. At that point, I knew I had my favorite blade in the game, as she had the best development out of any character, the best utility as a blade, and most importantly, she reminded me that I was playing a Xenoblade game. A game that I fell in love with when I first played it. A game that I still have fond memories of to this day. A game that I have sunk hundreds of hours into. A game that renewed my love for the entire video game medium. And a game that made me buy my first console on my own just to play this game. And most of all, just as Rex helped Nia realize she no longer had to live in fear of herself, Nia made me realize that I was playing a masterpiece. I'm the Omni Blade, and because of all the gushing I've just done, I'm calling it a night so I can go back into Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and reach out to all of the people that were touched by this game like I was. And I hope we can face our futures together as fans of this masterpiece.